My name is Lisa Ross, though you may know me better as Paper Daisy Creations, and I want to thank you all for joining me for the Brighten Up Mystery Knit Along. This knit along was designed to spark joy in your life in the hopes that that small spark of joy can be fanned into flames of happiness for you and to those around you. When the world feels really heavy, I like to focus on little things that I can do to make a difference. And that might be making a meal for a new mom, donating supplies to a local shelter, giving money to a relief fund, even just saying hello to a stranger or to that lonely neighbor on your street. Those small acts of kindness can really make a big difference. And that was sort of my intention as I designed this mystery knit along. So it was created using simple stitches in unique and slightly challenging ways. And today we are going to take that adventure together, take on that challenge, because this is something you can do. This is something that may seem overwhelming if you've only looked at the pattern, but together we are going to make it happen. It's going to seem surprising, mysterious, hopefully not too confusing, but you have all of the knitters around the world in our knit along thread that are there to support you and help you to work through this challenge. And in the end, I think you're going to have a KAL that will surprise and delight you and hopefully help you spread joy throughout your life.
All right, so let's get started. First of all, for this clue, you're going to need two different types of stitch markers. They're designated as marker A, and for me, I used these silver hexagons for marker A, and then marker B. And I used just these little circular stitch markers to be marker B. I have all different colors, but that doesn't matter because I know they're totally different shapes and sizes. Marker A, marker B. You could alternatively use all of one color as marker A, all of one color as marker B. However you wish to differentiate those, that's totally up to you. You just need to be sure you have a way to differentiate between marker A and marker B, and you'll see why in just a minute. So what I have here is a tiny version of the KAL. It is not knit according to the pattern in that clue 1 doesn't have any of the patterning that we did. I just knitted in one solid color so that you could see this shape just as it's laid out in the diagram in clue 3. And then I've got clue 2 is knit in this light coral pink color. And that is also not knit in the patterning that is written, and it is a much smaller size. But this is going to give you an idea of what we're doing, but it's in a much more workable area for this demonstration. It will also help preserve the mystery of what your individual KAL is going to look like as we go. So I have some of my stitches are on hold. I used the ChalGoo interchangeables, so they're blocked off on each end. Once I am ready to work those stitches, I'm going to switch out this ending for a needle. I'll go ahead and leave it on for now just so you can differentiate that these are the stitches that are currently on hold. So normally I would use this working needle to work the stitches, but because I'm doing a much smaller version, I actually need to switch to a smaller needle size, or sorry, smaller needle length. So I'm going to be doing this on a 16-inch circular, but that is not the case for you. All right, now we have here point A. That's right where our C5 was last worked. And we kept that attached just for this purpose so that I could tell you where to start your new color. And so I'm going to snip that yarn. Get that out of the way. And now I'm going to be joining C2. I'm actually going to switch this and use a different color for the demo purposes. This will be easier to see the difference when I'm using this lighter color. So clue 3 for this demo is going to be worked in this yellow-orange color. All right, so I'm going to be joining C2 for all of you at this point, point A, if you're looking at the diagram, and we're going to be knitting those stitches off the needle. And you can use the other end of your needle that's right there. I'm just joining this new one. And anytime I join a new color, I like to hold the tail together with the working yarn, and I just hold it in place like that for the first few stitches. Those will only count as one stitch when I come back around to them, but it gives me one less tail to weave in. I also have a trick for weaving in this end as you go, but to avoid confusion, I'm not going to show that in this video. There's also a link for the Weave in Steven tutorial, which can show you how to do that. All right, so to start out, I'm working all the way across these stitches. You have, at this point, 70 stitches on that side. My number is different, so don't pay attention to that. And I also put this marker here, and that's just to designate this is the right side of the knit because I don't have those eyelets and color changes that you have on your clue 1. I wanted to have it differentiated in another way, and that's why that, that little blue stitch marker is there. Oops. All right. Now, here is where it gets interesting, and this is a leap of faith, but I can tell you it is going to be a surprise. I like to have surprises in my mystery knit-alongs. I like to keep you guessing on where we're going from here, and I think I'm going to do that. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. Here is where we broke our color 5. We joined color 2. Again, don't pay attention to my colors, pay attention to your own. And we have knit all along this side, which is labeled in the diagram as diagram B. So next we want to come over here and knit off all of these stitches, okay? And so in order to do that, I'm going to turn this right side up. It's a bit more of a smile for you for the Brighten Up Mystery Knit Along. And I am going to come over to these stitches that were on hold. As you can see, I changed out my end for a needle tip. If you do that, it does not have to be the gauge needles. We're just knitting these stitches off of here. So you can actually go with a little bit of a smaller tip. So for example, if you're knitting on size 4, you could go down to a size 3 or even a size 2 to knit those stitches off of there. All right, so here we go. I've got these stitches, they're ready to knit. This tip is going to go to this tip. The way I described it in the pattern is to hold the two wrong sides together. So if you remember, this is designating my right side. I hold the two wrong sides together and then I'm ready to knit. So let me show you that. So I'm joining, I've got that's the place where my yarn was broken the last time during clue 2. And I'm just going to knit across all of these stitches. This is not a mistake. This is really happening. Don't be alarmed. This is where the adventure comes in. All right, now just as a reminder, my version right here is smaller than life size. I have knit a smaller version just to demonstrate this technique. It is not actual size, so don't be alarmed if yours looks substantially larger. And it might look quite interesting at this point. Like I said, I want to keep you guessing. Okay, so this is what we have so far. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to be cable casting on to the needle, right where my working yarn is. Okay, cable cast-ons cannot be worked with the right side facing out for this design. We're going to flip it to the wrong side just to work the cable cast-on stitches. And let me show you how to do that. Okay, so holding your yarn to the wrong side, you're going to cable cast on a stitch. And to do that, you reach in between these two stitches, the first two stitches on what is now the left needle, because we're on the wrong side. And you're going to pull the yarn through, just like as if you were knitting in between those two stitches. So you're not knitting into a stitch. Let me show you that again. You go between those two stitches. You yarn over and pull it up just like you were knitting. And then tip to tip, you're going to transfer that stitch from the right needle to the left needle. And now you have a new stitch on there, and that new stitch is going to want to try to like climb on top of the stitch that's currently there. So what I like to do is use my fingertip to just hold that stitch in place. It doesn't need to be super tight yet. You can see that it's plenty loose. And the reason it doesn't need to be tight is we're actually going to keep doing that. We're going to be cable casting on quite a few stitches for this design. So I'm going to go into the spot between these two stitches. So keep in mind there's one that was already on the needle, and then this is the one that we just cast on. I'm going to go in between those two stitches, yarn over like I'm knitting, and pull up a loop. And tip to tip, I'm going to transfer it. So that is my second cast on stitch. When I do that, I can snug up that, that in-between stitch. So let me show you how to do that again. You're going to go in between those first two stitches, yarn over and pull up your loop, and then tip to tip transfer it. Now, it doesn't matter if you are a right-handed knitter, left-handed knitter, if you are a continental style knitter or English style knitter, you're going to be doing this however you hold your yarn, however you work your knit stitches, you will accommodate this, okay? So again, use that needle tip, go between the first two stitches on the left needle, pull through just like you're knitting in between there, and tip to tip transfer it, okay? Now, if you really struggle with this technique, one other option that you can do is to use a crochet hook and go in between that way, yarn over and pull up your loop, and then transfer it to the needle. You just need to be sure that you're transferring it the same way every time. And so I'm kind of holding the back of the crochet hook up to the needle tip and doing it that way. So this could be a really fast way, especially if you're used to crocheting. So let me show you that again in slower motion. Going between the first two stitches, you're going to pull up a loop and transfer that to the tip of the left needle. And when you go in, whether you're knitting or using the crochet hook, when you go in between those two stitches, that's when you can kind of snug it up a little bit so it's not super loose. That's when you get a chance to snug up the previous stitch. So see how I keep this one loose because I'm working it. I'm going to get that yarn, pull it through, and then I can snug it up and make it nice and tight across there. All right, so I'm going to continue working the cable cast on, adding stitches to this, to these needles, and then I'll join you back here to finish up Clue 3's setup. Okay, at this point, I have finished working my cable cast on with all of these stitches. I need to be sure that I'm not twisting any stitches, which on this small needle that I'm using is a little bit tricky. Hopefully it's not as fiddly for you. I'm going to place marker A. So if you remember, I'm designating my hexagon stitch markers to be marker A. So I'm going to place that. I'm going to flip my work to the right side. And let me spread out these stitches so you can see it a little bit better. So I've now got it turned to the right side, and I'm ready to join to work in the round. So for this, I'm going to purl. According to the pattern, it's purl 13. Since I'm working a smaller version, I'm not going to purl that many. It's going to be a little bit different the way that I do it just because I'm doing a smaller version. Now, remember, if you held the yarn tail double with the working yarn, you're going to have some doubled stitches here. So you want to just make sure that you are working those as a single stitch and not as multiple stitches. You wouldn't want to be increasing stitches at this point. So let me just count. Okay, now I'm going to be placing marker B. Again, I'm using these little circular, these much smaller circular stitch markers as my marker B. I just started going on autopilot. And after you place marker B, you're going to knit 1. Again, you are purling 13. I'm doing it a little bit differently. Okay, you place your next marker B. I like to put markers of the same colors on the same side if I can. The marker or the stitch after marker B is going to be knit. Okay, another marker B. Oops. Oh, I did it again. Make sure you're knitting the first stitch after marker B and then purling. Okay, another marker B. Oh, I'm out of those purple ones. I'll use a blue one. Knit that first stitch right after the marker. Okay, and then when you get to the end of this, you'll get to these last 2 stitches where we have one that was worked on this side of the cowl and one that was worked on this side of the cowl. So your stitch counts should get you right to that point where you have one stitch that was from side 2 and one stitch that was from side 1. So at this point, you're going to place another marker A and you're going to purl those 2 stitches together. And that's going to help solidify that side. That was the reason why you worked 1 extra stitch on one side than you did on the other, and that's because it's going to be decreased right at that point. I'm going to place another marker A, and then I'm going to continue working this where I purl stitches. You do not knit the stitch on either side of marker A. For the rest of this round, you are going to be knitting the stitches that are in between marker A. This is the only place where it is purled. I'm going to go ahead and get this to the end of this round. Again, follow the instructions on your pattern because this version is slightly different. But I'll go ahead and get this ready so that I can show you what it's going to look like. Okay, so here we are back at the beginning of the round. I just placed my final marker A, I knit 1 stitch, and now I I'm here with marker A at the beginning of the next round. And what I want to do is show you how to check your stitches. So right now, if you're holding it, it looks a little bit like this, but I want you to flip it over to this side. And if you orient the beginning of the round stitch marker so that it's on the right hand side, you can sort of arrange your stitches and take a look. Move all those ends out of your way if you have them. And then you can take a look at the diagram that is on page, what page is this? 3 of your pattern. Take a look at the diagram on page 3, and you should be able to count the stitches that are in between each of those markers and make sure that you have the correct stitch count. You'll see your markers A each have 1 stitch in between them. Your markers B will have either 13 or 14 stitches between them. The first set after marker A only has 13. All of the other sections have 14. So check to be sure that you've got the correct stitch count. And then you're going to be joining your next color, color 1, and you'll be working round 3, where you're going to begin doing some decreases. And again, have a little faith. It may look a little bit crazy right now, but I promise you're going to be so excited with the results. And it's going to be really fun watching this mystery knit unfold. Be sure to jump on into the Ravelry knit along threads that are linked at the end of your clues. And let's see what you're working on. Let's see what everyone else is doing. And don't forget, that is the best place to get support if you're struggling. So share a picture of where you are. Let us know what the problem is. And there are lots of knitters who are there ready to quickly answer your questions and help you out. And of course, I've been on there checking as well. I wish you all very happy knitting.